Good morning. I am Dina Zuckerberg, and I am the Director of Family Programs at MyFace, a nonprofit organization that helps children and adults with craniofacial differences. And let's see how I do this. Do I do it from here?
I think on the computer. Advance it on the computer.
Advance it on the computer? Okay. Thank you. So MyFace has been around for more than 70 years and focused on providing access to holistic, comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes for those impacted with craniofacial conditions. With our mission, we focus on 3 pillars of support. I keep doing this wrong. At MyFace, we focus on 3 pillars of support: grant support, direct services, which I'll talk about today, and public awareness and education. I wanted to share a little bit of my story and my journey. I was born with a unilateral cleft lip, which was repaired when I was a few months old. I was also born with a hearing loss in both ears, so I hear nothing on my right and with a hearing aid in my left ear. I was also born with a small left eye and wear a prosthetic eye and actually have no vision in my left eye. I had 6 surgeries growing up from when I had the repair of my cleft when I was a baby into my adult years. I also had years of orthodontics and speech therapy when I was growing up. I was teased in school. Kids would say mean things. They would stare. I would be picked last in gym for team sports. I would sit alone in the lunchroom and on the school bus, and I remember those moments even today. About 30 years ago, I joined the Interfaces, a support group for teens and adults with craniofacial differences. I confess, I did not want to go to a meeting. I did not want to be a part of that group. And I remember one of the founding members, Elizabeth, kept calling me until I agreed to go to a meeting. And I will say it changed my life. It was, I was the child who didn't talk about my differences, who wanted to fit in and be like the other kids. And here I was in a group of people who, like me, had facial differences. And it forced me to address things that I had spent so much of my life running away from. And it was scary to be a part of a group like that. And I didn't want to acknowledge that I looked different and how difficult life was for me. And I was the child who said everything is fine when it wasn't necessarily fine. We did theater called Let's Face the Music, which was performed at the One Dream Theater in New York City, where through skits and song and what we called mirror logs, where we looked in the mirror and shared what we saw, we got up on stage and shared stories of our experiences growing up with a facial difference. And I will say, for many of us, including myself, it was the first time getting on stage and sharing my story of what it was like to grow up with a facial difference, because again, I was that child who didn't talk about it and said everything was fine. So when I came to MyFace almost 10 years ago, I, as the Director of Family Programs, it was really important to me through the work of providing programming the reason I wanted to do this was because I never wanted any child to go through what I did growing up, and I wanted to make it easier for them. I saw the need of offering support and resources to individuals and their families beyond the medical care that they received. I believe that the psychosocial piece is just as important and goes hand in hand with the medical piece and the recovery. One of the first things I did at MyFace was to deliver support groups for adolescents, adults, and parents. I always say there's power in the shared story in knowing you're not alone, and I have witnessed it over and over again in these groups. For example, in the parent group, I have a mom of a 3-year-old with Cruzon syndrome whose child has been in the hospital more in 1 year than outside of the hospital. And I then have a mom of a 6-year-old with that same condition and a mom of a 10-year-old with a similar condition saying that take it one day at a time, it will be okay, and you have a support system right here. It's everything to these individuals. One parent shared after a meeting, I just want to say that I really love this group because it gives me a chance to talk to other parents that truly understand what I go through. Not only do they not judge, but sometimes they offer really great suggestions. It's just great to have a place to be able to vent sometimes and to be accepted and understood. While there were a lot of negatives to the pandemic, one of the positives was that we are now able to offer support groups virtually via Zoom. I lead the adult group and now have individuals joining from across the country, as well as Canada, England, and even Australia. I recently had an older woman who acquired her difference and lives in Kentucky join, and she expressed how is it that she never knew that a group like this existed. She feels validated with her feelings and seen and understood. At the last meeting, we talked about dating and relationships, and afterwards someone said, thank you for leading a real, raw, and honest conversation. It really is a place in these groups for people to share things and be validated and say things that they feel that their family and friends probably wouldn't understand. And I know that was true for me when I was a part of the interfaces. The other thing that I've done being at MyFace, and I think is really important, is workshops for the patients and families. And one of the things that we did before the pandemic is an advocacy panel for school-age children, and how do you help them with bullying and how to help them in school when they need IEPs and all of those things, and done workshops on life after high school and done workshops on relationship and dating. And what I like about that is it allows them to have tools to deal with these things. It's not just the support, but how do I actually have the tools to help my child, to help myself, and to help my family. One of the other things that I have done is created a podcast which was called My Face, My Story, which I host, and it's a series of interviews, conversations, and roundtable discussions from members of the craniofacial community and beyond. And we've tackled topics like wearing masks and then removing the mask, and what does that mean, both literally and figuratively, dating with a facial difference, and even having a sibling with a facial difference. And what I like about the podcast is that it allows people within the craniofacial community to share their stories and perspectives in their own words. And then it's a way for us to educate the public about craniofacial differences and what that means to as an individual and as a community. And it actually, what I've witnessed and what I love is how it empowers those of us in the craniofacial community to use our voice by letting them know they're not alone, and encourages them to speak out. So, and I've witnessed that again with members of the community when they get to share their story in such a public way that they feel empowered and have a voice. And I just want to add, that the episodes can be found on YouTube as well as Google Podcasts and other major, Apple Podcasts, and Google and Spotify and all major podcasting platforms. There's also camps that are out there for children with craniofacial differences and their siblings. For example, Harvard Camps, which is in New Hampshire, is a week-long camp for children and their siblings. And what I love about this is that it just allows the kids to just be kids, to have that experience of being at a camp, doing all those fun things, away from the surgeries and the stares and negative attention they may get from other kids. I also want to say that there are other amazing organizations like My Face that are out there, including the Children's Craniofacial Association, where they have a retreat every year that brings together individuals and families and from all across the country. And what's nice about that is, you know, if you live, I mean, we're fortunate we live in New York City, where we have access to so many people and amazing care, but you can be in a small town somewhere in the Midwest and not have that community, and so they get to come together once a year and see each other in person. And I actually attended one of these retreats a few years ago, and it was pretty amazing. And then there's also condition-specific organizations like Mobius Syndrome Foundation, which is an amazing community, and they have a conference every year. And last year I was invited to speak about the Wonder Project, which is a school-based program that we have, where we go into schools teaching about differences, about choosing kind and being an upstander against bullying. This year I've been invited to be on a panel to talk about the work that we do at My Face. And then organizations like Smile Train, which I think everybody knows, and that I actually was invited to speak next week to cleft-affected adults about my story and about mental health. Because the other thing I just want to reiterate is that I think as individuals, we go through the care so much of when we're children, and a lot of the surgeries we have and the care that we need is when we're children, and then we become adults, and the medical care may stop, but there's still the psychosocial piece that I think is still very much a part of our lives, and also thinking about relationships and dating, getting a job, going out into the workforce, being out on your own, advocating for yourself with the medical care that you may need. And so I just want to say I think that is really important, and why I think it's important to think about adult care as well. And then I just want to wrap up and share about Elise, who acquired her facial difference from cancer of the jaw. She was treated in Connecticut, and she came to the adult group seeking a community who could understand what she was going through. She shares connecting and sharing experiences with others can bring a great amount of importance, meaning, and support into the lives of many individuals and families, myself included. By being a part of the My Face community, I hope to make an impact and serve as additional support for others living with a craniofacial difference. And I will say she was an individual who wouldn't say anything when she first came to the group. She reached out to me wanting support and feeling very alone in her journey because she hadn't really met anybody else because she had to have a lot of reconstructive surgery as a teenager for her jaw. And so, and I also just want to say that there really is power in the shared story in knowing you're not alone. And I have heard over and over again how I wish I had a community like this when I was younger, and how grateful I am to have this community today. The psychosocial piece is so important in the mental health of those in the craniofacial community, because it is a journey that continues well into the adult years. And I can say that that was true for me, and finding the interfaces was such a blessing for me, and has allowed me to get to the point where I'm doing the work that I do today at My Face. And I think it's allowed me to find my confidence and to find my voice, which is what my goal and aim is to, in all the work that we do, from these support groups, the education, the resources, is to help others find their voice and find their confidence in the world. And you can learn more about the work that we do at myface.org, or email us at info@myface.org. And again, I want to thank you all. I want to thank NextGen Face for including me today, and I'm happy to take any questions anybody may have. So thank you.